When researching this video, I think the main thing I wanted to get across was please don't let these people take away our capacity to think. Because I feel like my capacity to think is being threatened. These technologies are like intertwined in every aspect of our daily lives. They're legit trying to make us not have thoughts anymore, to make us just like these docile humans that just like trek along and are just overexposed to all this dopamine and pleasure. I read this book called Amusing Ourselves to Death. This is it here. My friend's dog chewed it off. You can see the bite marks like on the back. But I don't know how I came across this book. I was really interested in it because I was starting to feel just like I was constantly just like 2024 was starting to feel like a TV show. Reality was starting to feel like a TV show. And I wonder why that was. And the title was just super intriguing. So this book is about how the form in which ideas are expressed determines what those ideas will be. All these tools that we use to communicate with each other represents ideas beyond what the function of that tool is itself. And I thought that was extremely relevant in our current universe of media. The same thing or content that is expressed in this form, when it's translated to another form, the entire message will be the same. The idea will change. And there's a lot of examples of that in this book, from going to print media to radio, going from radio to television, which this book was written in 1985. So television was the most dominant form of media back then. Just let's think about our own daily life, right? I use GPS all the time. I don't have a sense of direction. But if I didn't have GPS, I would have no choice but to have a sense of direction, to learn how to read a map. I mean, we're using AI now to... I'm on my Mac. I mean, we're using AI now to write emails for us. Like, write the most basic, like, follow-up thank you emails for us, because we don't want to think about, like, just how to say thank you to someone. Huh? And I'm guilty. I do it. Trust me. I'm the worst at social interaction. Not the worst, but like not the best. And you know, AI has helped me just like do the things that I have, the small talk and the delicacies of professional conversation. Like I can't, it doesn't come natural to me. So AI has stepped in for me and helped me, express myself that way. And as a result, I'm not like exercising that, but I'm not learning to do that like myself, you know what I mean? So that's a muscle that remains weak. This book dives into how different forms of media, like print, social media, television, radio, all demand different forms of content. This book primarily talked about how all of culture is a conversation, and the mediums through which we have conversation influence the type of conversations that we have. A big example in this book, and something I'll be touching on a lot here, was campaigning for the United States presidency. We all want to keep talking about that, don't we? But in a time where radio was really big, or was a dominant form of media, it was imperative that a president be articulate and intelligent, whatever your definition of intelligence is, but just really good at speaking, because that's what people were hearing you through the radio. They were hearing your words. And now we have visual media where we can see a president's body language. We note their charisma. We see how they show up in like their Sunday best. They're not gonna come to a debate dressed like a bum, you know what I mean? They're gonna be fixed up. They're gonna be clean, attractive, which is subjective, but they're going to make themselves presentable because that's part of their performance. Let's go back to like 20th century America. America was dominated by print media at this time. People were reading a lot of books, newspapers. Even the way that they talked sounded like from a book, which is, it shows like how media has an influence on culture, because we see that same thing today with like people quoting language from like TikTok in real life, like because TikTok and social media is like the dominant form of media nowadays. So they will like quote tweets in real life, or the whole very demure type of thing, or even like type shit. Like all this is like social media language. So humans really like, there's nothing new under the sun, only new suns. My favorite Octavia Butler quote. People that lives in television culture, which we still have a little bit of television culture, need things in plain language. I saw this thing on Twitter the other day where this guy was like, he used AI to translate a lot of like classic books into modern English, and that just shows how far we are from being a culture dominated by print media. Our culture no longer resonates with the printed word. And this decline in print media also represents the decline in analytical skills, reasoning skills, the ability to compare and contrast, the ability to discern between disinformation and misinformation. Back then, public figures used to be known for their written words, not what they looked like or what they even said orally. The first 15 presidents of the US wouldn't even be recognized if they were walking down the street. When you thought about them, you thought about what they had written. You judged them for their policies, their political arguments. Now politicians of our time aim to appeal to our emotions and our passions and our enthusiasms. Political discourse tries to evoke this emotional reaction out of us, instead of the goal being trying to get us to understand. And in this social media era, we have water everywhere without a drop to drink, is what they call it. Just a sea of irrelevant information that is without context, without background, just none of that. Social media is able to move information, but it doesn't analyze it. It doesn't explain most of it. It's so much pseudo context because you're given fragments of irrelevant information. That seems like it may be useful. It seems that way. But when it comes down to it, it's only there to amuse us, to entertain us. And it began with television. Television made us live in our entertainment. We brought these things into our homes. Just like this is in my home right now. And when we consume it, when we consume television, we were shaped by the biases that television has. And it seems sometimes that our entire culture is just shaping into this arena for entertainment and for show business, which is a lot of what Neil touched on in this book. Every single technology that we use has an inherent bias. It has an agenda of its own. And in this liberal democracy and free market economy that we have in America, television is the perfect it's the perfect thing to take advantage of that. Television made entertainment the natural format for representing life or representing our experience. Every single thing on television and social media is entertainment. Whether it's a presidential debate, coverage of a plane crash, or the camera following a journalist through the wreckage aftermath of a bomb, with the camera angles, with the script, with the music, with how the anchors present themselves, how they're dressed, the fact that they're even like attractive conventionally. All of it is meant to keep our attention and also tell us what to feel based on what we're seeing. I mean, we are so numb to seeing like all these disasters, all these shootings, murder on television. Like, you would think we would lose sleep over this type of things, but we don't. Like, we witness people dying on social media and television, and we still don't turn it off. We still keep scrolling. We still keep watching. We don't lose sleep at night over this. That is absolutely wild when you really sit back and think about it. Like, that's some crazy. Like, I was watching Squid Game season 2 the other day, and I realized the reason I didn't finish like season 1 was because this show is so gory. I mean, there are 1,000 other worse shows and more gory shows, but like, just watching people get shot, like, that's sensitive for me. Like, I try not to consume that type of content, and just watching people like get shot and like die and like blood like spilling everywhere, it's like, like, I don't want to see this. Like, this is messing with my head. Why doesn't this mess with more people's heads? When you're watching television, and maybe this is a little different now because of streaming, but when you're watching shows or clips online or anything like this, like, there's no time to digest what you just witnessed or saw before you're moving on to the next thing. There's no time to think about, oh, what did that really mean? Or, oh, who is saying this and what might their biases be? Or, let me just think about what he might have meant by that. And it's like, no, the shot has already moved on TV. The doom scroll thing has already swiped to the next like clip on like TikTok or Instagram or whatever. There's no time to like to think about just what you just saw. There's no additional thought that you can have about it. With social media, we see thousands of tweets a day. We have these never-ending loops on YouTube, and yeah, I say YouTube too. YouTube is guilty too. YouTube is social media too. But yeah, we just have these never-ending loops of like content that just like, they make us not able to just like pause. We don't have time to reflect. We just move on to the next video. We're not meant to think when we consume these things. We're not meant to have thoughts. And when you don't think, you lose the ability to think, to discern, to analyze. And your brain turns to mush. Oh, life can be so depressing. Going back to presidential debates, unfortunately, I'm sorry, it's just like talked about a lot in this book, so I have to talk about it. But debates being televised requires the candidates to put on a performance rather than convey ideas. Post-debate, we're talking about their hair, their suits, the jabs they took at each other, the comebacks. We're not talking about their ideas. We're not talking about their policies. When I watched the 2024 presidential debate with Kamala and Trump, I watched it with an audience. Like I watched this like live. I went to this event that was a presidential like debate watch party. And the whole thing was like watching a TV show. It was like people oohing, eyeing, and laughing, and just it was entertainment. I was amused. It was like I had just went and like watched a movie with a bunch of people. Like they were like, "Oh, did you see when she did her chin like this and like waited? And did you see when he said this, that, that? He came at her like this, that." It's like we weren't talking about the policies. We weren't talking about, and it's like they don't even have like that much time to respond to like the questions that they're being asked. Like you cannot explain, you cannot give background information, context around whatever you're talking about in the span of like a minute and 30 seconds. Like you just cannot do it. Like we cannot, as the general public, grasp what a presidential candidate represents, their ideas that they want to convey. We cannot grasp that during a presidential debate. And that's when most of the general public tunes in to these races or these, candidacies. When they tune in to like I know it's when I tune in, I don't be paying attention to that till it's debate time, because I know that's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a good tea time. I'm gonna go on Twitter, I'm gonna scroll, and I'm gonna laugh. And that's freaking not okay, because these people are literally running our country. They should not be trying to entertain us. There's this quote in the book that says, "It is in the nature of the medium that it must suppress the content of ideas in order to accommodate the requirements of visual interest," which basically means like, because it's televised, the ideas and the messages conveyed have to be changed. Like they can't be in their full context. Like the medium literally does not allow it. Television literally does not allow that, because it's made to entertain us, not to inform us. We see television and now social media as a way to see our culture. Like we see it as a reflection of our culture, which is wild, because most of social media is bots nowadays. Like most of social media is not real people. It's literally bots. Like most of Twitter is bots, but we see it as like reality. Dang. Maybe AI do need to take over. Team AI. If you're watching this, AI, I'm with you. Yeah, the internet is dead. It's been dead. Ever since text to video, it's been dead. But that's another video. Things online become like the model for how the world is staged. How we talk to each other online becomes how we talk to each other in real life. The things that we're numb to on television and on social media become things that we're numb to in real life, unfortunately. It makes me think of recently how the woman that was burned on the New York subway in plain, like, for all to see and no one intervened. Is it because we see so much violence online that we're just like so numb to it that we don't even think to help someone that is literally on fire? Is that a part of the reason? Could be. In the book, there's this phrase called now ... this, which essentially when you're in radio and TV, is to say what you just seen or heard has no relevance to what you're about to see or hear. And the reason this is so relevant is because it discourages the viewer from lingering in thought. It's like, okay, stop thinking about that. Don't think about this. What you just saw. It's okay. You just saw it. We're going on to the next thing now. So don't keep thinking about that. We moved on. And it's like, no, you should try and digest and reflect on what you just saw. what you just heard. Yeah, they have X amount of time to answer the question. We have like no time to think about how they just answer the question before they're moving on to the next question. It's like this is not productive for anyone. Maybe for them because they don't have to like come with everything that they don't have to come like fully equipped with every tool in their toolbox and tell us what it is. They just have to come with fragments. And we accept that. Television and social media are changing what it means to even be informed. These tools may not have been like created to deprive us of this coherent understanding of the world, but when it's packaged as entertainment, that's what's gonna happen. It's inevitable. Two books that this author really references in this book is 1984 and Brave New World. If you haven't read them, recommend it. I've read 1984 but not Brave New World, but that's probably what I'm gonna read next after reading this. The contrast is like in Brave New World, the author thought that we'd dream and dance our way into our oblivion, rather than how in 1984 he thought we'd march into it in a single file line. You don't have to try and conceal anything from a public that's already narcotized by technological divergence. Like we have so much pleasure in our lives and in our just everyday society that you don't even have to like try and get us to be controlled. Like we just give us pleasure and we're easy to control. Not me though. Just playing. Short form content also subconsciously leads us to thinking that fully formed messages can be expressed in the short form, which they can't. They can't, y'all. They can't. You can never get the full context of something in the short form. It's impossible. It's not possible. There's so much nuance and unaddressed context. At the end of the day, technology is an ideology. But we still don't see it this way when it has literally taken over every aspect of our lives. Our social life, our sex lives, our education, politics, economy, art, expression. It's taking over everything. So what do? Do we just like stop using technology? Let's be real here. Maybe that could be a possibility. Stay tuned. But let's be real. At this present moment in time, Americans are not gonna shut down their entire technological apparatus. They're not gonna turn off their smart refrigerators. They're not gonna slam their computers. They're not gonna throw away these iPhones. So what do we freaking do? And technology is dangerous because we don't understand what the dangers are. What is information? What are its various forms? What are the main side effects of each form? What's the best kind of information that best facilitates thinking? How do the different forms of information persuade? We have to make ourselves aware of the structures of these technologies. But how do we do that? In this book, Neil said, I really didn't like this conclusion because it was kind of like, after all this all you gotta offer up for us to do. But he said it starts in our schools, of requiring like schools to teach these things. But on one hand, I'm like, not everybody has access to school. But if he meant it like in a public education type of thing, then maybe. But it's just, I just thought there was gonna be something more like individualistic that we could do to sort of for ourselves to sort of, you know, combat this control that the media and whoever is owning the media at the time has over us. I wouldn't say this was the most inclusive book. There were a lot of points in here I'm like, but what about Black people? Still, it was a lot of good points. I recommend it. I would recommend it. I don't have the answers after. I wish I could leave you with something, but all I can say is try to entertain yourself this year. Try to be bored more. Let yourself be bored more. Like, read boring books, watch boring stuff, spend time offline. Like, after watching this YouTube video, go outside, pick up a book. I mean, that's the stuff we've been preaching about for a minute, but it's like now it's like critical because it's just it's affecting, like, it affects so much. Like, one day I'll make my move out of America, but until then, like, just try and stay informed. That's all I can say. I mean, just do hard stuff. It'll pay off. Try to live in real life. That's what I'm gonna be trying doing more this year.